Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Thursday, July 11, 2019. I am MD. In 60 seconds, we will give you the world. Live from New York City, at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Fourth Branch presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. Once again, welcome to the Fourth Branch program. If you've been here before, thank you for your participation. It makes the journey a tad lighter, a bit more bearable. If you're here for the first time, once again, welcome to the Fourth Branch program. The Fourth Branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to perfect the union. To do so, we must remove the biggest obstacle of all: ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Thus, the importance of removing ignorance from the equation. As usual, we will continue to read the Mueller report. We have been reading volume 2 of the Mueller report. We will continue to do so in just a minute. Also, I must remind you that on July 17, 2019, Robert Mueller will be on Capitol Hill. Of course, everybody is crossing fingers if that's going to happen. Well, the date has been set. As such, if it happens, both on July 17 and after that, we will not continue to read the report, because the very point of reading the report is to provide some context and to provide some understanding of what the report is about. We take comfort that the architect of the report will be talking about it in much greater detail, hopefully in language that everyone can understand. Because thus far, what has caused the greatest harm to that important investigation of a foreign entity in our system of government is the language. Robert Mueller has been very nuanced, and even the only conference, the only time he spoke publicly, he created more confusion than he solved problem. So it is the hope that on Capitol Hill, question will be asked in a way that provides answers to all those seeking to understand what the report is about and what does the report say. I also must add, it is a shame, and by that I mean a real shame, that legislators, those you elected to represent you, did not even bother to read a report that produced after 2 years of investigation on a matter that is a national security. Yes, you heard correctly. There are many members of Congress and the Senate who did not even bother to read the report. Although there are Democrats among those members, but most of those who did not even bother to read the report are Republican legislators. Now, you may not care, as it seems to be obvious to most Republicans nowadays, that if it's something that has to do with the country, if it's something that has to do with national security, if it's something that has to do with preserving our institution, if it's something that has to do with protecting our Constitution, Republican, both legislators, those you elected to represent you, and constituent, meaning you, Republican, do not seem to care about the state of affairs in the country. It becomes almost as if the country is, whatever is being done by Democrats is only for the Democrats. The defending the Constitution, the applying the rule of law is not a Democrat affair, it's an American affair. Yesterday I gave you this analogy of liken the Republican Party, its members, to a group of individuals or a family sitting around the table discussing, or at least patting one another in the back as to how great values they have, how close-knit of a family they are, for that all that to be disturbed by a simple question by one member of the family. What family value? What core value? What patriotism? Which brings me to the very aspect of what I ought to talk about before we read the Mueller report. For the past several decades, I'd say 7 decades or so, 70 years plus, Republicans have always claimed to be patriots, defenders of the nation, defenders of the Constitution, a party which protects the rule of law. Now that is the legislators, that is those who want to keep their job in Washington. That's what they preach. Unfortunately, however, their constituent, their supporters, have always supported them because they believe that is the case. Much unfortunately, other people from other parties, Democrat, Independent, also believe them. It's a myth that lasted a very long time in the country, and you can see the damage such a myth has caused to the United States of America, to the very fabric of our society. I say a myth because there is absolutely nothing that Republicans claim to have and to be. That's true. They claim to be fiscally conservative. We already debunked that. We explained and provided example after example from one Republican administration to the next. The idea of Republican being fiscally conservative is a joke at best. They are Christian conservative. And I already also proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that's just a label that they like. But when it comes to the actions, when it comes to living the life of Christian, it's left a lot to be desired. And the list goes on and on. They have, if you go to a Republican website, you find a list of core values they claim to have. The irony is the myth has lasted a very long time. You know, it's like growing up in an environment where you believe that all Chinese are great at karate. Although the irony in this whole story is the fact that Bruce Lee himself is not Chinese. But besides the point, he has the feature, the Asian feature. So I guess here on this side of the world, that whenever we talked about karate, always think Chinese are great. They really know how to fight. That's obviously a myth. Now, we cannot take the few exception of those who practice the sport would be considered the whole of China with more than 1 billion individuals. But that was a myth. No longer so, but that was a myth. Maybe 2-3 decades ago, it was still a myth here in the United States that all Chinese are great at karate. There was also the same myth about people from India, that they're smart, they're intelligent, and in fact here in the United States of America, the competition between Indian when it comes to technology and other aspect of business, there was a stiff competition. Company would hire someone from India, although the individual may struggle to speak English, before they hire an American in particular. But mostly, if the competition is with a black, then you can rest assured the individual from India will get the job first, because there was this myth that people from India are smart. Now, this is not to diminish intelligent people in India, but this myth about as if it's across the board is a myth. That's all it is, just a myth. Just like there are plenty of very smart individuals here in the United States, but for some odd reason that was a myth. It is no longer true, although the myth the myth is fading away, because it's becoming clearer and clearer that that's not really the case. It's not true that all Chinese are great at karate. It's not true that all people from India are intelligent, smart people. Here in the United States, the myth about Republican being patriot, the myth about Republican being defenders of the nation, the myth about Republican being, Christian conservative, fiscally conservative, all that is myth that's been going on for decades in the United States of America. Now, the advent of Donald Trump is not what caused them not to be, because a lot of people, since Donald Trump has been in the Oval Office, there has been a lot of conversation in the media as if Donald Trump somehow changed the Republican Party to be what it is today. In fact, well before Donald Trump, I wrote a few articles which you can find on the peoplebranch.org website, and you can search for articles under the title "Debunking the Republican Myth," because I never believed that, at least for the past several decades, it's been pretty obvious that Republicans have claimed all kind of label, but they do not fit the hat, the clothing that they're trying to put on themselves. It's too big for them. They've never been any more patriot than Democrats, and yet they try to claim that as being their strong suit. As I explained to you, that was never the case. In fact, we have proof in the book, recorded in history, that in 3 separate presidential elections, Russia, yes, the same Russia that Donald Trump was in bed with, the same Russia approached Democrat candidate for president, offered to help them, and in all 3 occasions, the Democrat candidate said, no, thank you. That's patriotism. So Republicans have never been any more patriot than Democrat. In fact, if you take apple to apple, Republicans have always lagged far behind Democrats when it comes to patriotism. The difference is Republicans always have a bullhorn claiming they are patriot. Democrats do not have to, because they know they have to be patriot. So Democrats never take a bullhorn and claiming to be patriot, but whenever the opportunity presents itself to prove that they are patriot, they act accordingly. So Republicans have a big mouth. They have to. In fact, that's to make up for what they lack, because they're not patriots, but they have to continue to claim they are patriot. So they continue to claim that, all the while doing things that are blatantly unpatriotic. It's not Donald Trump that's caused that. Because we may be quick to point fingers to Donald Trump as if he has changed those legislators in Washington to become what they are. No, Donald Trump didn't do that. In fact, trying to pin it on Donald Trump is very dangerous, because very soon Donald Trump will not be president of the United States, but the same predicament we have will continue to be, because it is ingrained in the DNA of those individuals who are today members, legislators of the Republican Party. So making the argument that it is a Donald Trump problem is short-sighted. Now, this is not a defense for Donald Trump. We all know Donald Trump is a crook, is a criminal. His co-conspirators currently sit in jail for crime that he committed under the instruction of his boss, Donald Trump. So we know Donald Trump is a criminal. So I'm not making any excuse for Donald Trump. In fact, I've been referring to Donald Trump as Sleazy Don, and I'm actually looking for help to make Sleazy Don the name for Donald Trump, especially for the 2020 presidential election. I started to post Sleazy Don sleazing to 2020, making it official. Sleazy Don is Donald Trump, refers to Donald Trump, and it is time that we use that hashtag SleazyDon in order to refer to Donald Trump, because it paints Donald Trump really pretty greatly. And I'm looking for help, I'm looking for suggestion as to how to make SleazyDon the hashtag for 2020. But to the matter at hand. It feels almost as if those individuals called Republican legislators, they do not belong to the United States of America. As if the United States of America, what happened to the United States of America doesn't matter to them. Not only did I write about, but I also had a couple of episodes in which I raised the flag about the Republican delegation during the Trump administration. In the beginning of this administration, made 2 separate trips to Russia. And the only thing the public knows about it is they say it's to advance relationship with Russia. That's the only thing we know about it. And the reason is because in both occasions, Republicans went to Russia without the Democrats' counterparts. 2 delegations. That was the first time it has happened that you have a delegation going to a foreign country, especially an enemy at that, and one party decide to completely remove the other party from attending. Now, you don't have to be a genius to ask the question why, because it has never happened. In fact, even going across the border to Canada, which is an ally, a friendly country, any delegation of legislators going to a foreign country always comprise Democrats and Republicans, except the 2 delegations. Republican went to Russia without Democrats. The question you have to ask yourself, why? And you think it's not something that happened by accident. In fact, when Democrats tried to force the issue, Republicans rejected it. So it's something that they deliberately decided to do for a reason that we, the constituent, the American people, do not have any idea. When I tell you that the Republican legislators are no patriot, you think that's just a joke, that just someone who just talking gibberish? First, the US administration has always tried to establish better relationship with Russia. There is nothing new, there is nothing novel about that. But that's besides the point. As a matter of principle, whenever a delegation is going to a foreign country, it's always, if you think about it from a logical perspective, it serves the country by having members of both parties. Because member of one party may be very quick at accepting something that the foreign country is offering, but the other would look at the other aspect of the conversation. We're talking about when everything seems to be going according to plan normally. Now, let alone going to a foreign, the United States, number 1 enemy, one, and second, that's actively being investigated for meddling into our election. Now you take the Republican delegation, not once, twice, to go to that country without the Democrats' counterpart. And you tell me, arguing that the Republicans can actually say with a straight face they are patriot? What do you think patriotism is? To be American is not to be patriot. To be American is to be American. That doesn't make anyone a patriot. And so far, the very individuals, the legislators who took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States are the very individuals who are at the roots of eroding our democracy. And those are not words. They in the book. They learned that since Donald Trump has been in the Oval Office, there's been an erosion of our democracy. There is a trampling of the rule of law, almost a shredding of our Constitution. And Republican legislators are on board to do that. But the saddest part, as I mentioned many times here in this program, the framers of the Constitution could not possibly anticipate there would be the members of a political party. All the members of a political party would actually sell the country. They never could anticipate that. Of course, they know that there would be traitors. They know there would be unpatriots in the House, because when you have a place that has 435 people, I mean, they have their agenda. Different people have different agenda. So it was expected, especially at the time that the Constitution was being crafted, because we just came from a war with England. So it was pretty logical to think that there was still a remnant of individuals who sympathized with England. But the framers could not possibly anticipate that all the members of a political party would simply abandon, shred the Constitution of the United States. There is no way that they could. But what makes the situation even worse is the fact that the people, that maybe what I said could be untrue. Maybe they anticipated that we the people would right the ship when something like that happened. That means the members, the legislative members are in Washington, the legislators, when those individuals go out of line, go off rail, we the people would right the ship. Maybe they thought that. But let's assume for conversation's sake they did. Then I would say they could not possibly anticipate that all the constituents of a political party would abandon the country. Because as it stands today, all the legislators already done that. The Republican legislators already done that. So the way to right the ship would have been the Republican constituent, to simply get rid of those who are not patriot. They didn't do that. In 2018, in fact, the Senate got even more people, more Republicans representing Republicans, Republican constituent. So in other words, there is a serious flaw in our Constitution, and if we take a look further into the future, we can say with a high degree of certainty that the Constitution would become useless. It will be just another piece of document that's there, but it would make no difference in the lives of Americans. There are very active members at Fox, other places, that have been working diligently to shred our Constitution. And in Washington, the very individual who swore to uphold the Constitution have been helping to destroy it. So what recourse do we have? Considering that the people, the Republican constituent, they on board for the destruction of the nation. If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give or who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. Welcome to the reading of the Mueller Report. We are currently reading Volume 2 of the report. I'd like to remind you once again that on July 17, just a few days away, Robert Mueller will be on Capitol Hill to talk about what else? The report. He will answer questions from Democrats who are looking to make certain that his language is as clear as crystal. He will be answering questions from Republicans who will be trying to smear his name as if he was doing something against Donald Trump. Robert Mueller has been a Republican all his life. He has served as FBI director in both a Republican administration and Democrat administration. Robert Mueller was called to serve as special counsel, leaving behind a more than $3 million a year job to serve his country. Although he had the privilege of not going to Vietnam, of not being enrolled in the armed forces, he did, contrary to the individual today in the Oval Office who managed or who escaped the idea several times, claiming to have bone spur. Not only did Robert Mueller serve in Vietnam, but here in the United States when he came back, he could have got a plushy job, but he continued to serve our nation. As such, when Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel on May 17, 2017, there was not a single individual, both in Democrat and Republican side in Washington, who objected to it, because they know Robert Mueller integrity. They know he doesn't have any inclination as a partisan. He is, as usually said, a straight shooter. But since the investigation has started to produce results, and start to show clearly that Donald Trump was in bed with the United States' #1 enemy, all the Republicans from all walks of life, from under every rock, coming out to try to smear Robert Mueller. Contrary to those individuals, Robert Mueller has a lot of integrity. All those individuals who are now trying to smear his name, Robert Mueller has a lot more integrity than they do, because they have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt they are crook, scoundrel, and they will stoop to whatever level in order to serve Donald Trump. Now, for you constituents who may not understand the implication of such, the legislative branch is not to the service of the executive branch. The framers of the Constitution set a 3 separate and equal branches of the government, not for one branch to serve the other, but to exercise oversight on the other. What we're observing today is the Republican legislators completely abandoning the job for which they were elected. Democrats are not the problem. Republicans are, because they're not doing the job. To my fellow Republicans who say Democrats are just playing politics, that's the point. That's what keeps our democracy what it is, because each party has to exercise oversight on the executive branch of the other party. If that doesn't happen, then there is no democracy. So the defense that it's politics, yes, fellow Republican, it is politics. But it is necessary in order to preserve our democracy, in order to protect our Constitution.
The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting Attorney General apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the President clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
If we had confidence that the President did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Witness tampering. We're reading a definition, we're reading the section of Volume 2 of the Mueller report that's providing definition of terms and expression that used in the report to explain how they get to that conclusion that the President may have committed obstruction of justice. In the process of doing so, of course, the special counsel team resorted to a number of cases in the past, and they cited those cases in the document. So this section that we're reading is pretty boring, but part of the document, and as we mentioned, we do not add nor subtract from the document. Witness tampering. A more specific provision in section 1512 prohibits tampering with a witness. C 18 USC 1512 B13, making it a crime to, quote, knowingly use intimidation or corruptly persuade another person, end of quote, or, quote, engage in misleading conduct towards another person, end of quote, with the intent to, quote, influence, delay, or prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding, end of quote, or to, quote, hinder, delay, or prevent the communication to a law enforcement officer of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense, end of quote. To establish corrupt persuasion, it is sufficient that the defendant ask a potential witness to lie to investigators in contemplation of a likely federal investigation into his conduct. United States versus Edlin 887F.3D 166 174 4th Circuit 2018. United States versus Sparks 791 F.3D 1188 1191 to 1192 10th Circuit 2015. United States versus Byrne 435 F.3D 16 23 to 26 1st Circuit 2006. United States versus Lachey 417 F.3D 715 718 to 719 7th Circuit 2005. United States versus Byrne 298 F.3D 539 523 539 540 6th Circuit 2002. United States versus Pennington 168 F.3D 1060 1066 8th Circuit 1999. The, quote, persuasion, end of quote, need not be coercive, intimidating, or explicit. It is sufficient to, quote, urge, induce, ask, argue, give reasons. Sparks 791 F.3D at 1192, or coach or remind witness by planting misleading facts, end of quote. Edlin 887 F.3D at 174. Corrupt persuasion is shown, quote, where a defendant tells a potential witness a false story as if the story were true, intending that the witness believe the story and testify to it, end of quote. United States versus Rodolitz 786 F.2D 7782 2nd Circuit 1986. See also United States versus Gabriel 125 F.3D 89 102 2nd Circuit 1997. It also covers urging a witness to recall a fact that the witness did not know, even if the fact was actually true. See Lachey 417 of F.3D at 719. Corrupt persuasion also can be shown in certain circumstances when a person with an improper motive urges a witness not to cooperate with law enforcement. See United States versus Schatz 145 F.3D 1289 1301 11th Circuit 1998, telling Secretary, quote, not to say anything to the FBI and she would not be bothered, end of quote. When the charge is acting with the intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the communication of information to law enforcement under section 1512 B3, The nexus to a preceding inquiry articulated in Aguilar that an individual have, quote, knowledge that his actions are likely to affect the judicial proceeding, end of quote, 515 U.S. at 599, does not apply because the obstructive act is aimed at the communication of information to investigators, not at impeding an official proceeding. Acting, quote, knowingly, corruptly, end of quote, requires proof that the individual was, quote, conscious of wrongdoing, end of quote. Arthur Anderson, 544 U.S. at 705 to 706, declining to explore, quote, the outer limits of this element, end of quote, but indicating that an instruction was infirm where it permitted conviction even if the defendant, quote, honestly and sincerely believed that the conduct was lawful, end of quote. It is an affirmative defense that, quote, the conduct consisted solely of lawful conduct and that the defendant's sole intention was to encourage, induce, or cause the other person to testify truthfully. 18 U.S.C. 1512C. Attempt and endeavors. Section 1512C 2 covers both substantive obstruction offenses and attempt to obstruct justice. Under general principles of attempt law, a person is guilty of an attempt when he has the intent to commit a substantive offense and takes an overt act that constitutes a substantial step towards that goal. See United States versus Resendez Ponce, 549 U.S. 102, 106 to 107, 2007. The act, quote, the act must be substantial in that it was strongly corroborative of the defendant's criminal purpose, end of quote. United States versus Pratt, United States versus Pratt, 351 F.3D 131 135 4th Circuit, 2003. While quote, mere abstract talk, end of quote, does not suffice, any concrete and specific act that corroborate the defendant's intent and constitute a substantial step. United States versus Irving, 665 F.3D 1184 1192 to 1205 10th Circuit, 2011 rather. Thus, quote, soliciting an innocent agent to engage in conduct constituting an element of the crime, end of quote, may qualify as a substantial step. Model Penal Code 5.012G. See United States versus Lucas, 499 F.3D 769 781 8th Circuit, 2007. The Omnibus Clause of 18 U.S.C. 1513 prohibits an endeavor to obstruct justice which sweeps more broadly than Section 1512 attempt provision. See United States versus Sampson, 898 F.3d 287 302 Second Circuit 2018. United States versus Leisure, 844 F.2d 1347 1366 1367 8th Circuit 1988. Quote, "It is well established that an obstruction of justice offense is complete when one corruptly endeavors to obstruct or impede the due administration of justice. The prosecution need not prove that the due administration of justice was actually obstructed or impeded." End of quote. United States versus Davis, 854 F.3d 1276 1292 11th Circuit 2017. Internal quotation marks omitted. Investigative and evidentiary consideration.
The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime,
Investigative and evidentiary consideration. After the appointment of the special counsel, this office obtained evidence about the following events relating to potential issues of obstruction of justice involving the president. A. The president's January 27, 2017 dinner with former FBI Director James Comey, in which the president reportedly asked for Comey loyalty 1 day after the White House had been briefed by the Department of Justice on contact between former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and the Russian ambassador. B. The President's February 14, 2017 meeting with Comey, in which the President reportedly asked Comey not to pursue an investigation of Flynn. C. The President's private request to Comey to make public the fact that the President was not the subject of an FBI investigation and to leave what the President regarded as a cloud. D. The President's outreach to the Director of National Intelligence and the Director of the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency about an investigation. E. The President's stated rationale for terminating Comey on May 9, 2017, including statements that could reasonably be understood as acknowledging that the FBI Russia investigation was a factor in Comey's termination. And F. The President reported involvement in issuing a statement about the June 9, 2016 Trump Tower meeting between Russian and senior Trump campaign official that said the meeting was about adoption and omitted that the Russian had offered to provide the Trump campaign with derogatory information about Hillary Clinton. Taking into account that information and our analysis of applicable statutory and constitutional principles discussed below in Volume 2, Section 3 infra, we determined that there was a sufficient factual and legal basis to further investigate potential obstruction of justice issues involving the president. Many of the core issues in an obstruction of justice investigation turn on an individual's actions and intent. We therefore requested that the White House provide us with documentary evidence in its possession on the relevant events. We also sought and obtained the White House concurrence in our conducting interviews of White House personnel who had relevant information. And we interviewed other witnesses who had pertinent knowledge, obtained document on a voluntary basis when possible, and use legal process where appropriate. These investigative steps allowed us to gather a substantial amount of evidence. We also sought a voluntary interview with the president. After more than a year of discussion, the president declined to be interviewed. The next 2-3 sentences following that are marked grand jury, redacted grand jury. During the course of our discussion, the president did agree to answer written questions on certain Russia-related topics, and he provided us with answers. He did not similarly agree to provide written answer to questions on obstruction topics or questions on events during the transition. Ultimately, while we believe that we had the authority and legal justification to issue a grand jury subpoena to obtain the president's testimony, we chose not to do so. We made that decision in view of the substantial delay that such an investigative step would likely produce at a late stage in our investigation. We also assessed that based on the significant body of evidence we had already obtained of the president's action and his public and private statement describing or explaining those actions, we had sufficient evidence to understand relevant events and to make certain assessments without the president's testimony. The office's decision-making process on this issue is described in more detail in Appendix C, infra, in a note that precedes the president's written responses. In assessing the evidence we obtain, we rely on common principles that apply in any investigation. The issue of criminal intent is often inferred from circumstantial evidence. See United States v. Croto, 819 F.3d, 1293, 1305, 11th Circuit, 2016. Quote, guilty knowledge can rarely be established by direct evidence. Therefore, mens rea elements such as knowledge or intent may be proved by circumstantial evidence. End of quote. United States v. Robinson, 702 F.3d, 2236, 2nd Circuit, 2012. Quote, the government's case rested on circumstantial evidence, but the mens rea elements of knowledge and intent can often be proved through circumstantial evidence, and the reasonable inferences drawn therefrom. End of quote. The principle that intent can be inferred from circumstantial evidence is a necessity in criminal cases, given the right of a subject to assert his privilege against compelled self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment and therefore decline to testify. Accordingly, determination on intent are frequently reached without the opportunity to interview on investigatory subject. Obstruction of justice cases are consistent with this rule. See Edlin, e.g. Edlin 887 F.3d at 174-176, relying on, quote, significant circumstantial evidence that the defendant was conscious of her wrongdoing, end of quote, in an obstruction case. Quote, because evidence of intent will almost always be circumstantial. A defendant may be found culpable where the reasonable and foreseeable consequences of her act are the obstruction of justice, end of quote. Quatron 441 F.3d at 173-174. Circumstantial evidence that illuminates intent may include a pattern of potentially obstructive acts. Fed.R.Evid 404b. Quote, evidence of a crime, wrong, or other act may be admissible to prove motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, absence of mistakes, or lack of accident. End of quote. See United States versus Frank Hauser, 80 F.3d 641, 648 to 650, First Circuit, 1996. United States versus Arnold, 773 F.2d 823, 832 to 834, 7th Circuit, 1985. Sintolo, 818 F.2d at 1000. Credibility judgment may also be made based on objective facts and circumstantial evidence. Credibility judgment may also be made based on objective facts and circumstantial evidence. Standard jury instruction highlights a variety of factors that are often relevant in assessing credibility. These include whether a witness had reason not to tell the truth, whether the witness had a good memory, whether the witness had the opportunity to observe the events about which he testified, whether the witness's testimony was corroborated by other witnesses, and whether anything the witness said or wrote previously contradict his testimony. C.E.G. First Circuit Pattern Jury Instruction 1.06 2018. Fifth Circuit Pattern Jury Instruction Criminal Cases 1.08 2012. 7th Circuit Pattern Jury Instruction 3.01 2012. In addition to those general factors, we took into account more specific factors in assessing the credibility of conflicting accounts of the facts. For example, contemporaneous written notes can provide strong corroborating evidence. See United States versus Nobles 422 U.S. 225 232 1975. The fact that a, quote, statement appeared in the contemporaneously recorded report would tend strongly to corroborate the investigator's version of the interview, end of quote. Similarly, a witness's recitation of his account before he had any motive to fabricate also support the witness's credibility. See Tom versus United States, 513 U.S. 150-158, 1995. Quote, a consistent statement that predates the motive is a square rebuttal of the charge that the testimony was contrived as a consequence of that motive, end of quote. Finally, a witness's false description of an encounter can imply consciousness of wrongdoing. See Al-Adahi versus Obama, 613 F.3D 1102-1107, DC Circuit 2010, noting the, quote, the well-settled principle that false exculpatory statements are evidence, often strong evidence of guilt, end quote. We apply those settled legal principles in evaluating the factual result of our investigation.
The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the Office of the Acting Attorney General apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the President clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
I do hope this presentation was useful, was of some importance to you. If not, you already know what to do. Send us comment, criticism, suggestion. Let us know how we can do it better. As I said before, this program is not going anywhere. You might as well help make it better. If you have any other topic you would like us to talk about, send it to us. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or evening, whichever it happened to be. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Good day. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.